Is being DTF a bad thing? Is describing yourself as friends with benefits more acceptable? Are you perpetually in the friend zone? Do you think swingers hide behind these labels, but they're secretly all DTF?
I don't know. I tend to think so. And here's why. The dictionary definition says that DTF is an indication of willingness for a sexual encounter.
Well, that sounds like all swingers. So,
right?
Aren't we all willing? Like, isn't that the whole point, that we're all willing
to have sex with somebody else?
Yes.
100%. So, in the swinger community, DTF is thought of as differently.
Yeah, I think the definition that people have in their minds is more a willingness to have sex with anybody who's breathing.
Yeah, keys in the bowl, hike
Right.
it to the bedroom, and get down to business.
Anybody, anywhere, anytime.
Yes. And that is the furthest from...
Yeah, I think we can break down some DTF examples of how it's probably a little different than that understanding of it.
Yeah. So let's just say how DTF is beneficial, right? Talking can be awkward. A lot of talking can be awkward. It can be laborious. Maybe you don't know what to say. You slip into some kids' soccer game or something, and then you get nervous because you're like, oh, I'm not supposed to talk about that. I'm not supposed
Keep
to
it sexy. Keep it sexy.
Keep it sexy. Don't go into politics. Don't talk about the kids. Like, what are you supposed to connect on, right?
Right.
DTF also saves time. And DTF is always new, exciting, and novel. Not to say that friends with benefits can't be that way.
And I think that novelty aspect of kind of walking into a party and being open to sex with anyone really does kind of open up that NRE, that hunt, the chase, that sense of kind of conquest that you get when you kind of walk into a nightclub and you see somebody who's sexy across the room and you go, I wonder if they'd be interested in having sex. It's that hookup culture.
Right. That goes back to your dating life and what it was like to be in your 20s.
Absolutely.
Right.
Never met them before, haven't had a conversation. Do I have game enough to connect with that person that they'd be willing to have sex?
Yes. Now we have the hookup culture, and the hookup culture is a very empowering attitude towards sex.
Sure.
But it does come with a stigma.
There absolutely is some level of stigma in the swinger community towards DTF, at least from the perspective of the people who need to be friends first. It's the other side of the coin, right? It's the dark side, if you will, of swinging.
Right. There's that devaluing of this pursuit.
Yeah, I think the way I would describe it is there's a more noble pursuit of being friends with someone, really getting to know them, bonding with them, going to chili cookouts with them, that makes it not dirty, that makes it not cheap or easy.
But that's interesting. So do you think people label themselves as friends with benefits because the DTF is dirty and they're already doing something dirty and secretive?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a buffer from that stigma, that the slut shaming aspect of what DTF is.
Interesting. I wonder if that has something to do with it.
Let's dig into that a little bit. Friends with benefits. Okay, let's say that is a more noble pursuit. Let's say that that's the better way to go, right? Because just being a slut and having sex with anybody is just bad. How do you qualify or quantify friendship? Like, what is friendship at a house party? You just met somebody. Do you have to wait till the second date to have sex with somebody, is this a 5-minute conversation, or is this like you've seen them at event after event after event, and 6 months later, then you can finally have sex?
Right.
If you go to a desire resort and you're there for a whole week, do you have to wait till Thursday night before you leave? Or is it okay to have sex with somebody sooner than that?
Right.
And if it's sooner, then are you actually DTF?
Right. Exactly. And nobody has that, but everyone's quick to label. Nobody can define it, but everyone's quick to label it.
Right.
I fully understand that people want an interaction between two individuals to mean more, and they want to trust you because you are opening your precious relationship to another couple. And of course, you want them to be respectful and caring towards your spouse or other significant person.
I think a lot of the stigma around DTF versus friends with benefits comes down to the body count issue and not feeling like a number.
Right.
That they actually have a personality and there's a connection with those people. And I think a lot of that connection aspect, it's almost an emotional connection.
Right.
And we've talked about this before, where with a little bit of an emotional connection with people, the sex is usually better.
Yeah. And it's really more specifically the intimacy with another person. It's not like you're getting attached to them, but you are sharing a very intimate moment. There can be some tenderness there. There can be some petting and some cuddling after. There's kind words. There's sexy things said. There's all kinds of intimate things that are occurring.
And I think a lot of the intimacy I think that you and I really enjoy is the kind of letting your guard down a little bit and having fun in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Because you feel comfortable enough with that person to just be yourself. And I think that's another one of those aspects of the friends part, is that you can kind of hang out with your friends. So you're yourself, right? You're not putting on a facade. You're not putting on this persona of whatever.
Right. But we have had experiences in the past where we've been in DTF situations and we've laughed and asked for people's names afterwards. We've had a really great time. So, and even though we get their contact information, we never hear from them again.
Right. Probably because, and this is another big advantage of DTF, they got out of the lifestyle.
Yeah.
They tried it once.
Yeah.
So we would never have the chance to actually become friends with them because over time, they disappear.
Right.
And that was it. That was your one opportunity.
Your one-shot opportunity, which is why DTF worked in those situations.
Absolutely. We got 2 hours to get to know somebody and connect with them, and then they're out.
Yep. And we'll go through that whole list of other reasons why DTF really worked for us. There's also stigmas around women, slut shaming and body counts. I think that is pervasive in people's minds still, even though they may not think about it. It's a perception that's in the back of your head about how women should be and how they should own their sexuality. When we started swinging, I didn't really step into my own sexuality until we started swinging.
Right.
And I realized how powerful my sexuality was. And I owned that. And I could ask for what I wanted. And I could tell people what I liked.
Right.
But that, that happened when I was in my, 40s?
Yeah.
Late 40s?
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of sexual experiences, but the swinger community really brought that out of me. And
that comfort, that ease of being able to express yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because women are the gas and the brakes.
Yeah.
That sense of power that I had to control my environment was massive.
Yeah.
And getting comfortable with that power took a hot second.
Yeah. And it's interesting. We've watched a couple documentaries recently talking about sex and, looseness, if you will, not only from the sociological standpoint, but also from the physiological standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because there's this misconception that women who have sex all the time have loose vaginas. Men who have anal sex all the time, this was with men who have sex with men, that the incontinence issue. And someone brilliantly pointed out that those are muscles. What happens when you exercise a muscle? It gets stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, it would actually get tighter. So the whole Kegel exercise thing, that's exercising those muscles. Well, sex can do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Orgasms are a contraction of all of those muscles. So having a lot of orgasms, you're working your muscles out. It's not getting looser.
I know. This was just more slut shaming of women over
right. So it's just it's a horrible mischaracterization of what sex does to you. I think the other kind of mischaracterization that kind of goes with slut shaming is the disease factor, right? The STIs.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're practicing safer sex, if you're using condoms, if you're washing between partners, if you're doing all the good swinger etiquette things to kind of take care of yourself in a kind of random environment, you're cutting your risks down significantly.
Yeah.
I mean, condoms are pretty effective at stopping the transmission of diseases.
Yes. Yes. Most STIs.
So it's not 100%. It's not foolproof.
No,
but it's a lot safer than barebacking. And
what's the other term we learned the other day?
Oh yeah, we were watching a TV show, raw dogging, which is an older term, but yeah, raw dogging.
Raw dogging. Well, we should bring that back.
It just sounds raw.
Not
Wrong.
do it, but just bring the term back.
Bring the term back.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I'll only do that with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some examples of shaming that we've heard about in the lifestyle is someone said to us they met this woman and they said, well, she said, if you're not an asshole and you avoid saying anything stupid, I'm just going to fuck you.
Which I think is somewhat reasonable if you think about it. Like you just met somebody, you're at a swinger event. And in context, if you just said, well, as long as the guy's not an asshole and I'm attracted to him, why wouldn't I have sex with them?
Yeah.
That seems perfectly reasonable to me.
It does seem perfectly reasonable to me.
And I think the evaluation of whether someone is an asshole or not is part of that getting to know them thing, which is, in a sense, the 1 minute to 5 minute to 10 minute friendship evaluation. Like, could you be friends with this person? Yeah, they're not an asshole. I could get along with them.
Right. And so why would you put your value system on somebody else because, they didn't spend a whole hour getting to know them. Maybe they only need 5 minutes.
Maybe they just hit it off. I mean, everybody's heard of love at first sight, right?
Or that whole NRE thing where they're just like,
cross the bar, sparks flying, eyes make contact.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Why not?
Why not?
You're going to go, maybe the next party. Oh, they're not there. Oh,
yeah.
You're going to miss out.
Yeah. Yes. So, a lot of people, if they're polite and they're consenting, then they're good to go.
Yeah.
Right. But I do understand a lot of people need more time. They need to have conversations and things like that.
I kind of get some people's perspective from the friend's first point of view. It kind of goes back to, and this is a term that's being fleshed out more, and we're starting to hear it more, and that's demisexual. That's people who need to have an emotional connection with someone before they have sex with them. I kind of get that, especially if that's how you have sexual arousal. Like
Right.
you're not aroused by someone unless you're kind of emotionally connected to them. And I get just walking up to somebody that you don't have any kind of emotional connection to them. But the question comes back to, how long does it take to build that emotional connection? That, like, I get this person. I get this person.
Right.
Like, what kinds of things can happen in a conversation, and to then label yourself as only demi or
sapiosexual,
right,
where you need that intellectual conversation to stimulate you.
right. And I think all of us to a certain degree are that. I'm fairly certain that that's a spectrum.
Right.
And that I certainly am comfortable having sex with random people. Like, I don't have to know someone for a very long time to have sex with them, but I certainly have to be attracted to them. And a lot of my attraction has to do with, are they funny? Are they
engaging?
Flirty?
Right.
Maybe they're a little assertive. I kind of like an assertive woman.
Yeah.
Because it shows that they've got some enthusiasm and some confidence, and confidence is sexy, right? So you've got to be able to see those characteristics of a person before you can really build that spark.
Yeah.
And I get that.
That totally makes sense. I also think DTF is very situational.
So much.
Because your club environment versus your resort environment is going to be completely different.
Yeah, the pace is different.
Yes.
So a nightclub is definitely, the bar closes at 2.
Yep.
So you got to make your moves fast. You got to find the people. There's a lot of activity in a very small space.
Yeah.
Time is of the essence.
And the quality of the connection is going to be different, because in a club, it's a loud environment.
Right.
So you really don't have good conversations.
You can't have a good conversation.
They're very surface. What? Yeah. Huh?
That's so funny. I can't hear them at all.
Exactly. So I could imagine at a resort, we've been to a resort. So yes, we do know there are plenty of opportunities over breakfast, lunch, dinner, etc., down by the beach, whatever, at the pool.
You're lounging, you go for a walk,
yes.
You're on an excursion with somebody.
Yes.
You're bonding over cocoa beans in the woods. Like, I get it. I get it.
So looking back, now that we've been swingers for 11 plus years, our first experiences were very DTF. And a lot of that was the area we live in.
Yep.
We don't have clubs here. Well, there is one, but it's far away. What's available in your area highly depends on really how you swing. Your finances. We didn't have money to get on a cruise. We didn't have money to go to an adult resort. We were busy raising kids. We didn't have time to spend away. So we relied on house parties. We relied on parties that were happening 4 times a year. They had the big Halloween, the New Year's, the glow party, and something else.
Right.
That was it. We found ourselves in orgies a lot of the time, and we had a lot of fun. And
Certainly.
We really liked those. Are really DTF scenarios.
Very much so. Yeah.
You're not having a lot of conversation with people. In fact, sometimes you're not saying anything to that person. And we would go and we would observe orgies, and sometimes we'd jump in. Sometimes we just sit and watch.
Right.
Sometimes someone would give us a little come hither finger and we'd participate. But they always started off gentle and soft. They didn't always turn into full.
Right.
But we really had some wonderful, caring, fun, great experiences in orgies that were defined as DTF. We didn't know most of those people. In fact, we hadn't even seen them until we got in that room.
Yeah, there were a lot of times where we would do the mingle thing down on the dance floor, and we would introduce ourselves and meet people, but none of them were going to the playroom. So by the time we got up to the playroom, it was getting later. People would play really, really late in the evening, and we didn't want to wait. So we would just start playing early or start playing before anybody else had started. And we would end up kind of stirring up the crowd and getting people to join in with us. And there wasn't a lot of conversation.
No. I mean, you don't want to kill the mood. You have your basic conversation about, here are my condoms, here are my lube. I like this. I'm
right.
You know, I like this, and this. I don't want that, and that.
Right.
And you're good to go. The other thing I loved about orgies was people are always talking about that synergy, or, you know, we have to wait till the stars align. And when you know, you know. Well, a lot of times we would walk into a room where the orgy was, and you could just feel the electricity.
Right.
And you knew you wanted to be part of it.
Right.
You knew that you needed to be in on that bed in the action.
Yep.
And so we would step up and we would ask politely, can we join, or can I touch? And people would respond, whether they said yes or no. Sometimes we would get a no. Sometimes they said, we're only playing together for now.
Right.
And
a lot of parallel play for sure. Yeah.
It wasn't very often, but that's where I think people are missing out on some really great opportunities to be DTF, because you're missing out on those synergized moments, right? Those electric moments that people keep talking about.
Right. Yeah, that once in a lifetime chance at something.
Yes.
Right. So in those orgy situations that we found ourselves in, especially the early ones, which were very soft swap, did you ever feel like you weren't being cared for, or that you were being used?
No, because I had a voice. I was still practicing how to use my voice. Sometimes I was worried more about how others felt than how I felt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I never felt like anyone was uncaring or rude or, you know, breaking any boundaries.
Yeah, and I had the same impression during those experiences. Everybody was very in tune with each other.
Yeah.
There was a lot of and this was some of the magic of what those early experiences were. There was a lot of nonverbal consent granted. You could just tell by their body language and their facial expressions and how they approached you that they were respectful, that they wanted to participate, but they, you know, were being gentle.
Yeah. Yeah. I liked those. That was a fun time.
Yeah.
It was a fun time.
We had a good first few years after we got over the awkward.
Oh yeah.
Ugly duckling face.
Right. All right. So friends with benefits. Let's talk about that. This is defined as friends who trust each other enough to engage in sexual activity. Okay. Great.
Classic definition.
Right.
And I think the kind of the urban dictionary version is, hey, you up?
Yeah.
So just that friend you can call anytime, and you are so comfortable with them that you could just have sex with them at any point.
Right.
Or not have sex with them.
Right.
Although I think it tends to be, and you can answer this better than me, people who you predominantly call not to hang out and be friends with, but just to call for like a booty call.
Yeah, the friends with, yes. And so, good point. The friends with benefits, not lifestyle, is really, it's
It's more like a single person who you're DTF with all the time.
Yes. Yes. You don't go to dinner with them. You don't hang out. You don't go to your kid's soccer game.
So it's really light on the friend part.
Yes.
It's mostly the benefits.
Right.
But
in the swinger community, it's more heavy on the friend side.
Right. A lot more barbecues.
With a little bit of benefits.
More cocktail weenies than weenies. Got it.
So I get this friendship aspect. You know, for women, we like to feel safe, right?
Right.
Safety is key to feeling erotic or allowing that eroticism to come out. And women experience safety differently in the world than men do. And we need a little bit of that emotion connection or that intimacy that we were talking about earlier.
Right.
So the safety is really key to that.
Yeah. I mean, it's an invasive process, especially if you're talking about full on penis in vagina penetrative sex or even oral sex of that part. Like for a guy, it's pretty external, like everything's on the outside, but
we're very internal.
Yeah, you got to absorb that.
Yes.
So
yes.
I get that's
trust me.
Intimate.
I know. What is some of the downsides of friends with benefits? I mean, the safety is good. We talked about that. I mean, it's pluses. I don't know how many other pluses. You get to know them. There's that trust and the caring and things like that. It makes you feel comfortable. But the downsides are...
I think the biggest downside that we've experienced with the friends with benefits, and to be clear, we've moved out of the DTF.
Yes.
Sort of. We're swinging back towards the friends with benefits side because we want that deeper emotional connection.
Yeah.
But this has been our struggle with the whole finding friends in the lifestyle.
Yeah. You go.
We invest a significant amount of time really getting to know someone and hanging out with them and spending time with them. And then they get out of the lifestyle.
Yeah.
They have their own thing. They've got to figure something out. And not only do we not have the friends with benefits anymore, a lot of times when people exit from the lifestyle, they exit.
Yes.
Like, they don't talk to anybody in the lifestyle anymore. They're done.
Yeah.
And we've had friends, we've talked about this before on the podcast, that we can't even go have dinner with them.
Right.
They don't call us for, hot wings.
Or you get so friendly that you start learning things about them that make them less attractive. Like maybe their political stance.
Yes.
And sometimes, especially in these days, it can be a deal breaker for some couples.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's disappointing. And a lot of people I know are saying, well, that's your mistake for, talking politics. Well, sometimes it just kind of
comes up
casually and people go there and you try to stop the conversation from going there and it happens.
Yeah. Or you just happen to stumble across their social media platform and their profile, and then it's over, which goes back to our whole thing, which is like social media is fucking evil because it has the potential to ruin a friendship with someone because now you've seen what they post. You've seen the way that they interact with maybe the outside world. They may be really nice to you, but whatever their stance is, you just can't stand for that.
Right. And it takes a lot of time to build those swinger friendships.
Oh yeah.
It's weeks of buildup. The chatting online, maybe the exchange of pictures, trying to coordinate a date with 4 people.
Almost impossible.
And then, of course, there's getting ready, setting the time, picking the place. Oh, what does everybody want to eat that night, right? People are picky. And then you get there and it gets to game day and it's not so great. I mean, I can't tell you how many 20 hours invested in a friendship, and you go and you finally meet them for dinner and you're like, God, I can't wait to get out of here.
Right.
It's like, what a waste of my time.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that is one, the kind of like online flirting thing versus the real life flirting thing.
Right.
But even if you've been on several dates with them, especially if you're waiting, right? You've got this friends with benefits mindset. You're waiting to really get to know them.
Yes.
By the time you really do get to know them, you may not actually find them sexually attractive anymore.
Because you know too much.
Yeah.
It gets in the way of having fun sexually.
Or you've waited so long that you don't know how to transition anymore. You're such good friends, which we're going to talk about.
So too much talking, never get to fucking. And the adult resorts, sometimes they are great. They really are. You have a lot of time to get to know somebody. But sometimes
that's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people get so comfortable hanging out and doing the pool activities and playing shuffleboard
100%.
that they forget that they're there to meet couples and hook up.
Right.
And by the time they wake up after their fourth all-nighter drinky karaoke bar piano dueling session, they realize, holy shit, we're going home in 2 days. We haven't fucked anybody.
Yeah. We just spent $5,000 to get here, and
we paid the swinger tax and haven't had any swinging experience.
Right. And $5,000 is the conservative dollar amount.
Yeah, depending on which resort and which room you have.
Yes.
And where you flew from.
Right. So yes, if you're not verbally expressing your interest and you're not making that proposal,
right,
and you're not sealing the deal, which we have a podcast on as well.
Yep, we're going to be doing that one very soon.
Then you're not going to get to the finish line.
Yeah.
So your NRE, your new relationship energy, gets depleted. You started off great at the first part of the week, and now it's hot. Just
now they're not.
Right? And now it could be different depending on how you've defined your friendship, right? Maybe your friends are people you only see twice a year at the same resort every year.
Right.
I could see how your NRE would be supercharged, right? Because you only see them twice a year.
And maybe you flirt throughout the year and kind of build up that tension so that when you finally get to the resort, you're like,
let's go.
I'm ready to go. I can't wait.
Right. But it really depends on how often you see that couple.
Yeah. And I think it depends a lot on the dynamic with that couple. I can picture some of the couples that we've hooked up with before kind of having that kind of ongoing spark. But that's not very often. That's not very common to have that like supercharged sexual energy.
No, it's not. And usually it burns out, burns too hot, too quick, and it fizzles.
Or like we said, they get out of it.
Or something weird happens.
Like the big risk.
Oh, so then what happens when you're friend zoned?
Yeah.
You come to regard someone solely as a friend despite their sexual interest. And now they're just comfy slippers. And this is really the death of a swinging opportunity, honestly.
Yeah, and we've had this happen. We've had this happen to us. We've heard it from other couples who've had this happen. There was a quad plus because they had a few extras that would kind of rotate through the we had heard from them that, after a while, it kind of gets a little
Same
SSDD. Same shit, different day.
Yeah. Right. And we're swingers. We like novelty. So hence, right, new. You're always trying to bring in the new, and bringing in the new, especially if you want friends, takes time. It takes time to cultivate that. So if you're looking for more sexual experiences on a regular basis, DTF might be your jam.
Right.
Maybe you consider it.
Absolutely.
Now, some people have said, well, if it gets too comfy, you can always just bring it back. You just need to revive that spark. You could play a sex game, or just talk to them and say, hey, it's been a while since we've done,
Yeah, let's set up a play date.
Let's set up a play date. But not everybody could do that, right? Some people feel like once you've slipped into that friend zone, it's just dead.
Yeah, it's hard to jumpstart that spark again.
Yeah. And when that spark, that NRE is good, it's got that afterburn effect, right? It's you're coasting, your hormones are lingering, and it increases passion with your primary partner. And then when it's gone, it's gone.
Right.
So,
and we definitely found that in our early experiences where these new kind of really exciting sexual experiences would get us pumped up and recharged, and it would kind of recharge our batteries for sometimes weeks or a month afterwards, at least until the next party. And then we would kickstart it off again and go over and over and over again. And it was really good for that, to kind of have those hormones from a new relationship, but not have to be in a new relationship.
Right. And what was great about the orgies was you really didn't depend on NRE. It was a different type of energy and synergy that was going on.
Yeah, it was just sexual magnetism, just
right.
Everything going.
Right. So we still had a great time, but we didn't have that sparky thing that a lot of people are looking for in order to hook up.
Right.
And
it was just the situation that was sparky.
Right. Exactly. If you're waiting, right, for the stars to align, you're waiting for that NRE energy, that spark to happen. Sometimes you could wait and wait and wait, and then you don't pull the trigger, and then it starts to fade, right? And maybe your inhibitions are altered because you've been drinking or doing whatever. And the first time is great, but the next time you meet up, you're sober, and now the spark's not there.
They're not quite as interesting as they were the last time. They're not quite as funny as they were.
So this whole, I guess the point I'm getting to is this whole focus on finding that spark, that those people with that NRE energy, that's what it's going to take for me to, fuck you. That's pretty rare. That's pretty rare.
Yeah. And I think we've definitely found that it's more situation that creates that spark and that energy than the individual people. And that's not to say that the people weren't sexy or that they weren't interesting. It's just that being in a charged situation where people are horny, and a lot of people that are horny in a small space makes for a lot of fun energy.
Exactly. So we want to know what your thoughts are on DTF, FWB, and the friend zone couples. Do you think they hide behind definitions like FWB and friend zone because they're afraid of labeling themselves as DTF? Do you see value in DTF? We hope we inspired some interesting thoughts and perspectives with these definitions and our banter back and forth.
Yeah.
But we are hoping to destigmatize DTF in the community and really encourage you to type in your comments.
Maybe if DTF kind of sits uncomfortably with you and you're not full on DTF and you still need a little bit of that connection, maybe you're a hybrid model. Maybe you're somewhere in between the two. And I think that that's where probably most of us are. We've talked about sexuality being very fluid. It's a spectrum. I think that this balance between having friendships and being open for any kind of sexual experience or open to sexual experiences allows us to kind of have some fluidity between those two definitions. And I think this is one of the reasons why definitions are sometimes shied away from by a lot of people, because if you label yourself, does that mean that that's the only way that you define yourself? Or is there some nuance there or some subtlety?
Right.
And I think that there's a lot of nuance and subtlety between DTF and friends with benefits, because I think we fit somewhere in the middle between those two. And depending on the situation, we're a little bit more one or the other.
Yeah. Yeah. It highly depends on the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you joining our community and hanging out with us. Don't forget your homework. Tell a friend about our show. And if you like, leave a review and a comment. You can also leave us a voicemail at 916-538-0482. We'd love to hear your comments. We'd love to hear your voices. And if you have a great story about DTF or friends with benefits that you'd like to share with us, feel free to leave us a message. We'll even use you in the show. If you want to be anonymous, no problem. If you want to tell everybody your screen name, go for that too. We're open to that. You can also reach us at swingeruniversity.com. We have a website. We've got a newsletter. We've got all kinds of fun, informative content, sexy content on that site. And you can find all of the different social media platforms that we're on right there. And as we like to say, keep learning, keep growing, and keep it sexy.